It will, but like we know already that the pre-hire and the employee are two different objects. So the applicant will continue. The pre-hire will continue to remain in the system as a pre-hire object. When we convert, when we hire the worker, Daniel Sloan will be an employee as well. But there will be two different objects with two different reference IDs, but they will be linked together. So this pre-hire will be linked to that employee object. But there will be two different objects. Right. So let's now create another one. Another one of our favorites, Martin Walters. So then we go to email. We create him Walters at test.com. So we are just preparing the system for this hire. So Martin A02001. So WW. Martin Walters. This is an applicant ID, so it's applicant ID. Let me just store it like that as well. Okay, what else do we need? We need job profiles, but before that let's get the reference IDs for this Chicago location, because we are going to hire the worker in Chicago location. Okay, and then we also need the reference IDs for XYZ Motors and Executive. So let's go back to our XYZ Motors. Supervisory organization, and you see the reference ID is this one, the organization ID, but still, we will go and take it the correct way. So we go to the related actions. Integration IDs. A few IDs. Right. So you see, the organization ID type is different. It is not an applicant ID. It is an organization reference ID. Right. And what is the ID value? This is the organization reference ID. And the value for that is supervisory organization. 6,460. Right. So this is what they generated. So we are going to use that. Similarly, here also we are going to have an organization reference ID. Okay, you're not going to use the names. Okay, I mean when we are doing it using the Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't know what the Excel spreadsheet or the integration cannot search using the name. So we have to use a reference ID. So here also, it has been created. It is in the same sequence. Supervisory organization 6460. Now we will have the Chicago location. Now you might be wondering that why we are doing this individually, one by one, and how long will this take if we have a lot of organizations or different components. For that you are going to use your reports in your report. You are going to create dumps. Right. You're going to create a lot of big Excel spreadsheet dumps where you have the location ID or where you have the reference ID exported for all locations. You can have a report which says the Chicago as one column and you have the reference ID type as the second column and the third column can be the reference ID. So you have an Excel spreadsheet. In that spreadsheet, you have a list of all the locations and their reference IDs. And then, when you are doing your Excel spreadsheet, all you need to do is VLOOKUP. Right. You can just do a VLOOKUP and you get all the necessary reference IDs that you want. So this time we are doing it manually. So that's why we are doing it one by one. Otherwise, this is typically done using Excel spreadsheets and VLOOKUPs. Alright. Then we need to create job profiles. Right. So we need to create 2 job profiles, one to hire Daniel Sloan as the CEO and one would be the Vice President of Sales. That is Martin Waters. Let's quickly create that. Create job profile. Alright, effective date. Let's give it as the first click, OK. And let's give it a name. W. Chief Executive Officer Officer. Officer. Right. And what is the management level? Management level is the Chief Executive Officer, and anything else do we need to do? You're not doing compensation right now. So we just keep it simple. Click OK. Alright. So now we need the reference ID for this as well. So we go to the related actions. Integration IDs, view IDs. So this is a job profile ID, which is 240. Okay, so job profile, CEO. Job profile, ID. This OK, and let's create one more. Create job profile. What was the effective date? They use 1st of April? Yeah, let's use that. So W. Vice President. Vice President of. I think he was Vice President of Sales, right? The management level is Vice President. Okay. Right. So now let's create our reference ID for this one as well. 241, it should be a 250. Alright, great. Not required to take what for management level? Yeah. No, I'm taking the one for the job profile, right? You are going to hire a worker for the job profile. The management level is part of the job profile. Right, it will be picked from there. We don't need to take the reference ID of the management level, not necessary, because we are doing it from the job level. Alright. So now we are more or less that we will. We will take the reference IDs of other objects. If we need them. But now let's go, and create our EIB. What's the task? To create an EIB? Create EIB. Right, create EIB, and we are going to do what we are going to write an integration. We will put our naming convention, WW, we will say EIB. Sorry, yeah, EIB, and we will say, hire employee. And what is the direction? Inborn in. It will be inbound because we are looking for a hire employee and we are loading data into the system. So we will select the direction as inbound. Click hook. Now remember that when we are doing an inbound EIB. Right, and we are doing an inbound EIB. We have to use web services. Right, we will use web services to load the data into EIB. I mean you into Workday for outbound. We have 2 options. It can be a custom report or it can be an EIB. but when we are loading data into Workday, it has to be an EIB. Now here also. You see this, get data, transform and deliver sections. Right, so it looks a bit different than what we saw yesterday or day before for the outbound EIB. Right. It doesn't have to do anything with the direction of the EIB. Let me tell you, this is the new look of the EIB that came out as part of 2021 R2. So it allows the customers to choose whether they want to use the new look or they want to continue with the older look. So in the other tenant that we were working on yesterday, they were using the older look. Right. But now this is the latest and the greatest view that we have of the EIB. Right, it looks a bit cleaner, much more. I mean, much better to look at. So you click on Next, but essentially it's the same thing. Essentially, the options, menu options exactly are the same, but just that it looks a bit different. Alright. So the retrieval method. How are we going to get the file? You can attach it at the launch. Remember the Workday attachment that we had for an outbound EIB? Similarly, here you have the option to attach the file at the launch. You have some other options. Like you can get it from Google Drive, from an SFTP server. You can also get it from an Amazon Simple Storage service, or you can get it from an FTP or FTP location as well. Right. But we are going to attach the file at the time of launch. Now what is the template going to be? Is it a web service template or is it something else? But we will use a web service spreadsheet template. The operation, if I look at this, for each of these public web services operations, you might choose one of that. Like, for example, for human resources. You will see add academic appointment, assign members to an organization, change licenses, change other IDs, etc. So for each of those we have a web service. Now remember, for each of these web services, these are all put type of operations. Right. We are going to upload data. Can we get a get workers here? A get worker. No. Right. We will not get. It will not come as a possible option at all, because a get worker is to be used for an outbound EIB. Because we are going to get the information from Workday and send it to an external system. But this is going to be an inbound one. So all of the web services that will be available to you for an inbound EIB are of the put type, where we are going to update the Workday system with some data. The name may have put, it may not have put. That is fine, but they are going to be of the category of put, so we are going to do a hire. So for hire, it is hire employee web service. Right. Hire employee web service. There is another one, which is import hire employee. This is for high volume transactions, very high volume. If you want to load 300,000 employees, you will not go for the hire employee web service. You will go for the import hire employee web service. There is a difference between the normal web service and the import web services.